I barely had my laptop open when Nathan cut me off. "Danica, let's hold right there," he said, planted at the head of the conference table like this was a courtroom and he was about to read a verdict. The room locked up instantly. Chairs stopped shifting, pens froze midair. I still had the coordination model pulled up on my screen. Weeks of cross-team revisions layered carefully, dependencies mapped, conflicts resolved, all of it ready to present. I didn't even get one slide in before he continued. "Effective immediately, we're realigning operations to support digital transformation and structural downsizing. Your role has been absorbed." The phrasing was surgical, impersonal, like I was a redundant column being deleted from a spreadsheet rather than a person who'd held this place together for 8 years. I scanned the room without moving my head. The senior team was packed in tight. Project leads, finance, legal, people who had leaned on me quietly for years and were now suddenly very interested in their notepads. Megan sat near the far end, shoulders stiff, eyes glued downward. The same Megan I trained 3 years ago when she still called me boss, when she followed me into every planning meeting and asked questions instead of pretending to know everything. Now she looked like she was hoping invisibility was contagious. Nathan reached into his briefcase and slid a thick envelope across the table toward me. "This outlines your severance and HR's transition plan. You'll retain system access through end of day. Please return your badge before you leave." His voice never wavered, calm, neutral, like this wasn't the end of 8 years or the removal of the one person who knew where all the bodies were buried in the pipeline. I didn't speak. I didn't ask for clarification. I didn't plead or argue or demand time. I didn't even blink. I unclipped my badge, felt the familiar weight lift from my neck, and placed it neatly on the table beside the unopened envelope. My hands were steady. My eyes stayed dry. That was the promise I'd made to myself the moment Nathan Kell had joined the company. They would never see fear on my face, not even a flicker. "Before we start, how is your day going? And where are you joining from?" The question floated through my mind like a cruel echo from 100 meetings I'd led myself. Then I stood, walked out of the room on silent heels over polished tile, past security without a second glance, and stepped into the elevator. The doors slid shut with a soft hiss, and only then did I let out one controlled breath. They thought that was it. Like I was dead weight they'd just peeled off the budget, like cutting my badge cut my influence. What they didn't know was that 3 months ago, I'd prepared for this exact moment. When I built Gridlock, the real nerve center of Westmere's logistics operation, I buried a command deep inside the architecture, an unauthorized removal trigger. If my credentials were ever deactivated without reauthorization, the system would know. As the elevator descended, I pulled my phone from my bag and opened a secure admin shell. One green line blinked at the top of the screen. Unauthorized removal detected. Lockout phase initiated. I slipped the phone away, straightened my blazer, and walked out onto the street like I'd just left a dentist appointment. They had built their entire operation on my structure, and now the foundation had quietly cracked. I merged onto the freeway without turning the radio on, just the steady hum of the engine and the faint rattle in the glove box I still hadn't fixed. My badge was gone, my title erased. My name was probably already grayed out in the internal directory. None of it mattered, because the system they had just locked me out of didn't belong to them. Gridlock was mine. Every line of code, every silent redirect, every embedded logic check that smoothed out their bloated schedules and masked their incompetence. They thought they hired a logistics manager. What they actually got was the architect of the only thing keeping their entire pipeline from collapsing. I didn't build Gridlock out of spite. Not in the beginning. It started 5 years ago as a workaround. Their crew scheduling platform was a third-party disaster that crashed weekly. Field teams sat on job sites for hours waiting on materials that never synced. Subcontractors crossed paths without coordination. Project updates lived in email threads like it was still 2006. So I stayed late, every night. I rebuilt the back end quietly, piece by piece, off the books, building something that actually worked. No executive approval, no oversight. When it stabilized, I launched it. Not on Westmere's fragile internal servers that went down every time IT sneezed, but on a private cloud under a shell company I'd registered years earlier. Green Line Solutions LLC, just another subcontractor buried deep in the vendor stack. No one ever asked where the optimization engine came from. They just saw deadlines met, delays shrink, clients renew faster, bonuses increase. Everyone applauded the results without questioning the source. Gridlock didn't just manage logistics, it anticipated failure. Weather disruptions, inventory mismatches, crew callouts. It rerouted, rebalanced, synchronized 3 regional zones in real time. And I built every inch of it alone, testing it through shadow projects until it could reroute a concrete delivery across 2 counties without human intervention. I never bragged, never documented ownership, because I knew eventually someone like Nathan Kell would arrive. The moment he showed up in his polished blazer, armed with buzzwords about digital modernization, I recognized the pattern. He wasn't there to improve anything. He was there to gut it, bring in consultants, slap his name on a direction, and pretend the work had just begun. I'd seen it before. Same blueprint, different logo. So I planted a tripwire. If I was cut off without a secure RO code passed through the admin shell, the system would begin to retract. Slowly, gently. No explosions, just friction. Missed handoffs, ghost loops, delays that look like human error. Not destruction, disruption. At a red light outside a Shell station, I pulled the tablet from the passenger seat and checked the shell again. Lockout trigger received. Countdown initiated. Passive disruptions begin in 4 hours, 17 minutes. I pulled up the site summary. South Bay crews had already missed their second sync ping. No reroute issued. Materials for the downtown retrofit were still marked in transit, but Gridlock wasn't confirming receipt. I didn't smile. This wasn't revenge. This was structure correcting imbalance. You remove the builder, the frame slips. It was inevitable. They just rushed it. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the fracture had already started. Quiet, subtle, like a hairline crack spreading through concrete. By Monday morning, they made it official. The HR email hit around 10. No greeting, no apology, just a sterile assignment line. You will be retained as a remote tech advisor during this transition period. Workspace located on floor 2, south, desk 2C. I knew that floor. It used to be storage. Probably still smelled like paint thinner and old toner. My access list confirmed it. No admin tools, no crew logs, no shared drives. They hadn't fired me. They'd shelved me. My badge beeped red at the turnstile. The guard glanced up. Limited access here, he said. Elevator C only. Floors 2, 4, and lobby. That was it. I used to have roof access. Now I was just high enough to watch them fail. Desk 2C wasn't even a desk. It was a fold-out table wedged between filing cabinets, a dusty mini-fridge buzzing like it was dying. They thought this was punishment. Meanwhile, Nathan was parading his tech-forward vision through the building. Consultants in glass rooms. Startup jargon. No field experience. At the center was Landon. Perfect hair. Expensive watch. Called himself a data lifecycle strategist. I watched as he poked around a laptop, pretending confidence. Then he opened a folder he shouldn't have. CIS Staging Archive Old. Selected all, deleted. What he didn't know was that folder was a decoy, Gridlock's inert mirror. The second he hit delete, Gridlock cloned itself, shifted core structure to a hidden shell, returned a fake success notice, and scrubbed logs. Landon leaned back, satisfied. I watched from my tablet through a ghosted connection they hadn't discovered yet. Still had the keys, still had visibility. They were dismantling a system without ever touching its heart. 2 days later, we were herded into the main conference room. Folding chairs, branded banners, coffee urns sweating in the corner. Westmere Reimagined splashed across the screen in a futuristic font. Nathan's vision. Megan stood at the front beside Landon, dressed sharp, smiling like she'd been promoted into someone else's work. "Thanks for joining," she said into the mic. "We're excited to share what the new systems team has been working on." She clicked the remote. A sleek interface filled the screen. My interface. Same routing tree, same color-coded logic. They hadn't changed anything except the skin. Landon stepped forward like he'd built it himself. This new logistics dashboard uses an AI-driven routing algorithm that reduces task overlap and enhances real-time visibility across job sites. I folded my arms. That wasn't a new algorithm. That was my backbone script, line for line, repackaged under a fake name. He fumbled through the next few screens, moving fast, trying to sound technical. Then he hit the demo portion and froze. The site sync schema runs on a node cluster that... Wait, he paused, confused. He was staring at the dynamic route tab, not realizing it was waiting for an admin override what only I could clear. Gridlock had flagged the attempt silently. I raised my hand, calm, steady. Not to humiliate, just to move it along. "It's a dynamic junction pool," I said. "It runs off a region-synced task array, not node clustering." Megan cut in fast, her voice sharp. "Smile, cater now. Let's let the new team take it from here." Just like that, loud enough for the back row. She didn't even look at me. A beat of silence followed. A few people shifted in their chairs. Landon gave a stiff chuckle and kept clicking. I lowered my hand. No one else said a word. Later, I found out a summer intern sitting by the wall had filmed the whole thing. Just a short clip, my correction, Megan's dismissal, the room going still. It started quietly circulating through internal Slack channels. No one shared it with me, but I saw the file name in passing. oldguardshutdown.mp4. No one asked if I was okay. No one stopped me in the hall. Not even Megan. She didn't just cut me off, she signaled it was open season. After the meeting, I didn't go back to my folding table. I went to the break room, made a cup of burnt coffee, sat down by the dusty microwave, and pulled up my tablet under the table. Another deletion attempt, blocked. Another access failure, flagged. Landon had tried to purge a routing protocol. Megan had poked at the update control she didn't have keys for. Gridlock logged every move, timestamped, traced. They weren't just pushing me out anymore. They were trying to bury me in my own work. Repaint the walls, strip the plaque, rename the system, and stand on it like it was theirs all along. But I didn't build Gridlock to be seen. I built it to survive, and it was still listening. I stayed in the break room until the building got quiet. Past 6, maybe 7. Hard to tell with the stale fluorescent lights humming overhead. When the last cluster of voices faded down the hall, I packed up my tablet and headed home. The minute I walked into my apartment, I dropped my bag on the kitchen table and opened Gridlock's secure admin shell. If they were bold enough to steal the front end of my system in broad daylight, I knew they'd push harder after hours. The alert was already waiting. Flagged event, unauthorized route override attempt. Origin queue, status rejected. Spoof detected. Route override. That wasn't just meddling, that was someone trying to seize the spine of the system, rip out my access, rewrite ownership, erase the architect. I opened the trace window. The command was masked behind a spoofed IP, but Gridlock wasn't stupid. It drilled through the decoy in under 3 seconds and pinned the source to a specific terminal, Megan's terminal. I sat back in my chair, letting that hit. She didn't even try to hide it well, just wrapped her attempt in a lazy shell mask and hoped I was too far out of the picture to notice. Years ago, she would have come to me first, asked questions, admitted she was over her head. Hell, she used to sit 2 desks away from me and whisper, "Can you check my numbers before I send this? I don't want to screw up." And once, just once, she did screw up. A massive routing error that threw 3 crews onto the wrong site and cost the company a week's worth of cleanup. She was terrified she'd be fired. I stepped in, took the responsibility on myself, and fixed the mess behind the scenes. She thanked me every day for a month.
Now she was trying to lock me out of my own architecture. Gridlock displayed the attempted command. It wasn't clumsy. She knew exactly what she was aiming for. Root-level credential reassignment, a clean wipe of the original builder. She wanted authorship, not credit in a meeting. Ownership. And Nathan, he wasn't her ally. He was her ticket. She'd hitched herself to him so tightly, she probably thought she could run the whole tech-forward direction herself once he was done showing off. I wasn't angry, not the screaming kind of angry, more like the deep, cold kind you feel when someone kicks a foundation you spent years reinforcing, the kind that makes everything in your head go sharper. I opened Gridlock's internal modes. There were 3: Adaptive, Lockout, and Watch. Adaptive handled the day-to-day routing. Lockout was already running from my termination. But Watch, that was different. Watch didn't block anything. Watch recorded everything. It scraped every unauthorized command, every hidden attempt, every backdoor probe, built a shadow ledger with timestamps, user IDs, device fingerprints, and intent tags. I toggled Watch mode on. The confirmation blinked across my tablet. Watch mode active. Passive tracking engaged. No visible impact to user environment. Shadow record initiated. I leaned forward, elbows on the table. She wanted to be the architect. Fine, let her build a tower on sand. Every step she took would be logged. Every attempt at rewriting my work would be captured in a place she didn't even know existed. And when the moment came, because it always comes, I'd have the entire record ready. Not to burn her, just to show the truth. Because tonight proved something I'd been trying not to admit. Megan wasn't following Nathan. She was trying to replace me. So I let the system run. Let the logs roll in. Let her think she was getting closer to taking control. But she wasn't chasing an empty chair.
She was chasing the blueprint. The one thing she'd never earn, never understand, never be able to duplicate. No matter how many masks she hid behind, she wanted my place in the structure. She had no idea the structure was still watching her. 2 days after Watch Mode went live, I got the final HR notice. Please schedule a time to collect your personal items. Escort will be provided. No greeting, no thanks, just logistics. I picked the earliest slot, got there at 8:30 a.m. sharp. Security badge still in my coat pocket. Dead plastic now. A junior security guy met me at the front. Barely 20. Couldn't even look me in the eye when he said, "I'm supposed to walk you up, just to, you know." I nodded and followed. We didn't talk. My old floor looked the same, but the energy had shifted. Colder, quiet. Everyone hunched deeper into their screens when I passed. Some pretended they didn't see me. One guy from finance glanced up, froze, then immediately started typing like his life depended on it. We stopped at my old office. The nameplate had changed. Megan Richards, Director, Systems Integration. I didn't blink, just opened the door and stepped inside. Same room, same glass walls, same faint lemon cleaner smell. But the desk had been scrubbed of every trace I ever existed. Framed photos gone, books gone, extra monitor gone, just a cardboard box on the floor, already half filled with a few loose pens, a coffee mug, and a monitor cable I never used. I didn't rush, didn't waste time either, grabbed what was mine. 2 binders, an old notebook, a backup flash drive, and a roll of electrical tape I always kept in the drawer for emergencies. Then I opened the bottom drawer, the one that always stuck. It groaned like it hadn't been touched in months. Inside, stuffed under a bent folder of supply receipts, was a thick, yellowed folder, edges curled, paper dry with age. I pulled it out and flipped it open. There it was, my original sketches. Gridlock before the name, when I called it Ops Frame on a whim. Diagrams in pen, not pencil. Code blocks in shorthand. Routing trees drawn by hand. And my signature on the bottom of every page. Dated, archived, mine. Proof they could never delete. I tucked it into the box. Didn't fold it, didn't hide it, just placed it right on top. Nobody came to say goodbye. Nobody asked how I was doing. They let the kid walk me out like I was a stranger. I passed Megan's new assistant outside the office. She didn't even look up. At the elevator, the kid cleared his throat. You good?"
"I'm fine," I said. And I was, because the moment I stepped outside and the door slid shut behind me, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Gridlock Phase 2 engaged. Passive disruptions escalating, initiated by pattern triggers. I hadn't touched it. Gridlock saw the signs. It made the call on its own. That system knew what instability looked like, knew when a structure started to tilt. They thought they boxed me out, but all I'd done was pack the blueprint and walk away. By morning, the cracks started showing. Nothing huge, just small fractures where everything used to hum. 2 deliveries missed their dock windows. A supplier in Reno didn't get the prep files for a materials run. A crew in Phoenix showed up to the wrong site entirely. I didn't have to lift a finger. Gridlock Phase 2 was subtle, not destruction, just chaos with soft edges. Timers misaligned, confirmations ghosted, pings went unanswered while backup queues stacked in the background. Everything still looked functional on the surface, but under it, friction. Real friction. I sat at my kitchen counter in sweats, coffee half cold, watching the internal logs roll across my tablet. Everything was tagged: origin, delay time, failure point. Gridlock wasn't breaking anything. It was pulling back the scaffolding, the parts they thought they didn't need. And still, no alerts hit my phone. No admin override attempts, no panic messages. They didn't even know what they were looking at yet. Around 2 that afternoon, the doorbell rang. Not a knock, a sharp buzz. FedEx envelope overnight. Return address, Westmere Build and Secure Legal Affairs Division. I knew before I opened it. Inside was a 4-page letter written like it had been scrubbed by 3 lawyers and a PR consultant. Nothing direct, no words like theft or breach or intentional damage, but it danced around them, real polite. You may be in possession of intellectual property developed during your time at Westmere. Certain disruptions have been observed in key systems previously under your management. We ask for your cooperation during our ongoing review. They wanted me scared, wanted me to blink first, but I wasn't rattled. I walked straight to the drawer where I'd stashed the yellowed folder, pulled it out and flipped through every hand-drawn sheet. Pen marks, page numbers, my signature, my handwriting, my original time-stamped logic charts. Then I opened a second drawer and pulled the receipts. Hosting records from the day I registered Gridlock's domain, all tied to Greenline Solutions LLC. Paid out of pocket, no company billing, nothing tied to Westmere, not even the server routing. And the final piece, my contract. I'd reviewed it 100 times before I left. No IP clause, no assignment of rights to backdated developments. Everything built off the official stack was theirs. But Gridlock had never touched their servers directly. I called my lawyer. We'd gone to college together. She wasn't fancy, but she was sharp. I scanned the paperwork over. 30 minutes later, she called me back. "You're clear," she said, "and this letter is weak. They're hoping you'll fold." "Send a reply," I said. Professional, calm, direct. The reply went out before the end of the day. My ownership was outlined in 3 short paragraphs. The documentation was attached, and the closing line was simple. Any continued implication of misconduct will be treated as defamatory and unfounded. I didn't hear back right away, but I knew what they were doing. They were scrambling, trying to plug holes in a system they didn't understand because it wasn't theirs to begin with. The consultants were probably guessing. Megan was likely digging through mirrored logs, trying to reverse engineer what I'd built. Nathan, he'd be doing damage control to the board, spinning the issues as growing pains. Let them blame me. Let them pretend the problem was sabotage, not stupidity. Because this wasn't an attack. It was subtraction. The machine had returned to its true weight, the weight it had before I spent years holding it upright. And now that they'd cut me out, it was settling uneven, loud, messy, cracking at the joints. They didn't fire a name on payroll. They fired the person who understood how it all stayed together. And now the structure was speaking for itself. I didn't plan to listen in, but someone forwarded the link. Private investor update, high clearance only, the kind of meeting where video was off and voices were tight. Normally, I wouldn't care, but the subject line read, Operational Infrastructure and Digital Continuity, Emergency Briefing. I clicked in. Mic off, camera dark, just audio.
Nathan's voice kicked things off smooth and rehearsed. Thank you all for joining. We've been making aggressive progress modernizing our operations. The temporary disruption issues are being resolved as we transition legacy architecture into a new cloud-forward stack. Bull. They weren't resolving anything. They were spinning in circles, patching bugs that didn't exist before they shoved me out. A younger voice jumped in next, probably one of the consultants. Our rollout reflects Westmere's commitment to innovation. The system's original framework wasn't built to scale. That's why we're rebuilding from the ground up. Except they weren't rebuilding. They were painting over cracks and praying the floor held. Then someone older cut through, voice slow and clear. Who owns the infrastructure? You could hear the whole room pause. Nathan coughed. The logistics platform currently in place is part of our internal toolkit, integrated over several years. That's not what I asked, the older man said. I asked who owns it. The system you're leaning on, the one routing your jobs. Who built it? Silence again. Nathan scrambled. It's evolved, a combination of in-house assets and... The older man didn't let him finish. I met Danica Hart 5 years ago at the Raleigh site review. She walked me through a routing model on the back of a napkin during lunch. Said it's the structure that keeps the job standing, not the sign on the front. My chest tightened. I remembered that napkin. Waffle House outside the site. I'd drawn a 3-node reroute system in ketchup and coffee stains. She showed me that logic before this new direction ever existed, the man continued. And I kept that napkin. The line went dead quiet. No one interrupted him. No one tried to smooth it over, because it wasn't just some sentimental anecdote. It was a receipt. One of the board members had just validated me in front of Nathan, in front of the investors, in front of the entire decision-making chain. Gridlock wasn't a product of Westmere's vision. It was mine. Megan's voice never came. I waited for it. I knew she was in that call. She had to be. But she didn't speak. Not one word. No defense, no explanation. Just silence. Nathan tried to move on, but his tone cracked. Well, yes, we're aware of Miss Hart's previous involvement. But the current platform is an iteration. The same man cut in again. You mean you took her work and built a marketing layer on top of it? No, I wouldn't characterize it like that. How would you then? Nathan didn't answer. No one did. 30 seconds passed with nothing but background hum. Then a voice from the board chair ended it flat. We'll continue this offline. Click. The call dropped. I sat at my kitchen counter, still staring at the paused screen. The same half-full mug of cold coffee beside me. No headlines, no applause, no apologies. But someone remembered the napkin, and in that moment they knew this wasn't a company-built machine. It was a system handcrafted by someone they'd boxed out, someone who was still standing. 2 mornings later, I got the email. Subject line, Opportunity in for Lead. Founding sender, Tyler J. Ironfield, Startups MLS. I stared at it for a second. Already guessing. Tyler Jensen, one of my old project engineers from back in the Louisville days. I'd mentored him straight out of trade school when he didn't know the difference between load time and laydown. Smart, solid, humble. One of the few who never tried to cut corners. I opened the message, straight to the point. Danica, I heard what happened. We're building something new. Real structure-first logistics. No board games, no suits pretending to know back end. Just builders who want things to run right. We need someone to lead it. Name your terms. I won't insult you with a lowball. I didn't hesitate. No posturing, no counter. I wrote back, you want it to work? Let me build it my way. That's the deal. He replied in 5 minutes. Deal. The next day, I cleared a corner of my apartment, ordered a standing desk, and fired up a brand new dev shell. No borrowed vendors, no aliases. I logged in under my real name and saved the project under one file, Gridlock Nova. It wasn't going to be a patch job, no salvaging half-broken code. This was a rebuild from zero. Lighter, cleaner, smarter.
a system that could grow without ever needing to be hidden. By day 3, I had the base routing engine spinning. While I worked, Westmere fell apart in slow motion. I didn't need access to know it. I saw the signs. Former coworkers popped up on LinkedIn with open-to-work banners. Mutuals started whispering about missed client deadlines and entire projects being reassigned. One of the regional managers emailed me off a personal account. Just one line. "Did you know Megan got pulled off all public projects? Her name's not on anything anymore." Then someone else forwarded a new org chart. Nathan's name gone. No title, no memo. Just scrubbed clean like he never existed. Whatever story they told the board, it didn't land. They'd spent months building their empire on a stolen structure, and now the walls were crumbling. And I didn't post about it, didn't leak screenshots, didn't brag or call anyone out, because I didn't need to. While they scrambled to rebrand failure as transition, I was already 15 modules deep into Gridlock Nova, running tests with a 3-person site in Duluth. It worked beautifully. No hiccups, no ghost commands, no masks. Just clean sync between ground crew and cloud logic, exactly how it should have worked from day 1. I didn't need headlines. I had system logs that ran clean and a blank canvas under my name. Tyler texted me later that week. We signed 5 more regional contracts, all on Nova. They're loving it. I stared at it for a second, then locked my phone and went back to work. Westmere could crash on its own. I wasn't there to watch the wreck. I was building something else, something that didn't need permission to stand. I like this cafe. 3rd in Washington, corner booth by the window. Enough traffic to stay sharp, not enough noise to lose focus. I logged in to Gridlock Nova just before 8. Early launch dashboard was running clean. 5 firms live across 3 states. Routing times down, task churn at 0. No flags, no crashes, no patch notes. It breathed on its own. Across the street, Westmere's tower sat half-lit. I recognized the floor layouts even through the tinted glass. Marketing dark, finance empty, signage half-gutted. The new logo was still in plastic, never installed. I sipped my coffee and clicked into the back-end console. 2 more firms had synced test environments overnight. A 3rd was hovering, evaluation mode. I could already tell they'd sign. The inbox pinged. New message. Subject line, inquiry. Gridlock Nova. Integration, Mid-Atlantic commercial sites. I didn't even blink, just clicked reply. Didn't need a pitch deck, didn't attach a resume, just offered a time to talk. The system spoke for itself now. I didn't have to. The server purred in the background, running on a shell I designed from scratch. No hidden vendors, no rented space, just clean-owned code on my terms. Outside the window, a city bus rolled past. I glanced at Westmere's doors, still locked. No foot traffic, no deliveries, no signs of life. I didn't feel satisfaction, I felt still. Back home, the yellow folder was right where I left it. Bottom drawer, sealed. The paper inside hadn't moved in months. I hadn't opened it since I'd packed the box, but I didn't need to. It wasn't nostalgia, it was proof. Proof I'd always been the builder. Not the mouthpiece, not the placeholder, the foundation. And the silence that used to feel like erasure, it felt different now. This silence was earned. They thought they fired a problem, but what they really fired was the structure, and the structure walked away with the blueprint.